unpacking the myths of modern dating. What are some of those myths? We're going to talk about that and so much more on this segment of It's Scary to Remarry. Today's guest is a returning guest. He is a relationship and life coach who resides in the greater Atlanta area. Shout out to Atlanta. He is a graduate of Georgia Southern University with a bachelor's in sociology and has also obtained a master's degree in business administration from Keller Graduate School of Management. He is the founder of Championship Caliber Enterprises LLC. He works with single men and women who are looking to become better prepared for future relationships. He mentors couples in their journey towards marriage and helps build married couples to build their legacy towards growing in love and stability with each other. Bravehearts community, let's show some love to Bryan Thomas. What's up, bro?
Man, what's going on, man? It's good to be back, man.
Good to be back. Thanks again, man, for accepting the invitation because this topic is going to be powerful and you are the perfect guest with your wisdom and knowledge and the amount of people that you've touched and talked with. So I know this episode is definitely going to be one for the ages. So I want to jump into this. So what's the biggest lie people believe about modern dating?
The biggest lie is that you got to give up something or you got to give up your life.
Well, I know let's talk about that.
So with modern day dating, you have to consider everything is a risk and an investment. And you have to determine which investment is worth the risk.
Yeah, I want to talk about that a little more because, there's some other questions I want to ask about that as well. But I believe all relationships are a risk. And on top of that, because people say, well, when I first met him or her, they were cool, but you never really get to know someone. We were cool for the first year, and then all of a sudden he like switched. How can I tell these things? But I think there are certain things that we can decipher early in the dating stages. I talk about when I dated my wife long distance. I talked about her character and how important integrity was. Those values and morals, I think those are very important.
Yeah, I think in relationship, a lot of people want shortcuts.
Mm-hmm.
And there is no shortcut. It is you learning about yourself and then taking that information and relaying it to another person safely.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, because, sometimes some people, man, I think there's only so much information that you can share with someone in its infancy stages. And then, as you progress, I think sometimes you can give people just kind of, I won't say breadcrumbs, because I know people want to say breadcrumb, and you breadcrumbing? I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, being able to give someone just little doses here and there of yourself and see what they do with that kind of information. And then I think you can kind of move forward from there because some people might not be able to handle the full you, and neither should they be able to take all that in one setting. There was a term that I heard a pastor, he called it emotional promiscuity.
You got to explain that one.
Yeah, he said emotional promiscuity is when you share way too much early in hopes of that. I don't want to call it trauma bonding because I know a lot of times we throw these terms around. But it's like we can identify each other pain. It's like trying to find someone who can identify with that pain with you early because you're just giving away so much of yourself in its infancy stages in hopes of this person can be attracted to you. It's like, oh yeah, my mama left me too when I was 9.
I'm going to be honest. I've made that mistake when I was younger.
I've been there myself too. I just didn't have a label for it.
I shared a little bit too much information, and it actually scared some of the young ladies that I was, inquiring about. It scared them away because they were, they weren't ready for that raw information. I think that one of the things that's a myth about modern dating is that everybody should have the capacity for where you are. And we sometimes don't give people that grace. We have an expectation that based off of what we see from them, that now they are ready for the raw and uncut us. But it's almost like if you were to take a steak, there's a lot of people that do not like their steak medium rare. Mm-hmm. There's some people, most people are going to say, I want my steak well done. And so what you have to look at in today's modern day relationships is that we have a well done mentality for a medium rare product. It's unfinished. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for that steak to be already seasoned the way that we want it to, based off of the appetite that we have developed over the years. But in actuality, when it comes down to, a relationship, you have to go into each relationship with the understanding that everybody's got to learn who you are, and they have to learn the curve of understanding what that means. And I think a lot of times we look at what a person may have, like, okay, for example, and on social media, whatever, like I always like to throw stuff out there. Many of the conversations, and I'm sure you know about this, there is an emphasis on provision. There's an emphasis on what a man is supposed to come into the equation taking care of. And if he can come in and he can take care of those things, then he's considered to be a man of high caliber. But what I tell people a lot of times, and people, they disagree with me, but I tell people a lot of times, you cannot put the expectations of marriage on a man who has not even decided if he is ready to invest in you in that way. And I think that many young ladies have this thought process of men are supposed to come in and they're supposed to do certain things because the previous generations, now, I'll say this about the previous generation. There were a lot of father figures that stepped in and gave a model to their daughters that this is what a man should do. They were great providers, but they were not great communicators. And so we have now determined in this culture that what's needed is not necessarily provision all the time. What's needed is a level of communication that is progressive. Because here's the thing, provision can change. But as long as there is a high level of communication, you can maneuver through. But if there is a high level of provision and a low level of communication, somebody's going to be leaving unsatisfied. And that's one of the myths that we're dealing with in modern day dating. We emphasize on a person's ability to manage their life, but we don't emphasize on a person's ability to manage their life along with another person that they're showing that life to in its development. We have an expectation that we want women to come ready to cook and clean and be wives. And a lot of the churches have capitalized on a woman's desire to be wise. We got, and you can look across social media, you look across Instagram, Facebook, how many ministries are for wives in waiting, or Proverbs 31, or Esther and Deborah and Ruth and Boaz, all of those, which are emphasizing to getting married. But if we look at the development of a relationship, actually brings about the element of you dying to yourself. So think of it this way. When we think about two people coming together, I have my identity, she has her identity. We're coming together to develop our identity as one. And sometimes when we're in the midst of doing that, part of this personality that I didn't want to deal with, it has to die down. Like I have to edge off my inability to communicate because I've been doing things for my own self. Or she has to edge off a little bit of her independence because she's been used to doing those things. And I think that we have an expectation in this modern dating time that people should just come together and get it. But you're dealing with people that have been on this earth for 30 plus years doing things their own way. And how do I appeal to a person that has never seen it from that point of view? How do I share that you can do things a little bit differently from a space where it doesn't feel like I'm intruding on the life that they desire to live? And so the myth a lot of the times is that in modern dating is that you got to give up yourself in order to get what it is that you desire. And that's not always the case.
You said so much that I want to unpack, because you talked about being in your 30s and living this life on your own. You know, you got it out the mud. You might be a single parent kind of thing, and that's another situation where you have a single parent who's raising a child, and then you come into the picture, and they're used to doing things their way. And now you got to try to prioritize your marriage or the kids. Like, who comes first? How do I balance this? And that even takes a lot of work and a lot of deprogramming. You know, we have a blended family. And so my bonus son, I remember he was younger when we first got married. He said to his mom, he said, "So when is Shon going home?" She said, "No, baby. No, Shon is, no, we're married now." He's like 3 at the time, you know. But for 3 years, he was used to him and his mom, you know. So that creates a whole different dynamic, man. But man, I'm glad you said that. And there's so many places we can go with this, because I was going to say, why do so many people fail at modern dating? But I guess you kind of answered that too.
Well, I can dive into that a little bit more.
Let's go.
So I'm a sociologist at nature. So I've done my studies over, a number of years. So here's one of the reasons why modern dating is failing. Okay. We have patriarchy and we have feminism. They are fighting for relevance, and both of them are dying. So you have a group of individuals that they love this traditional thought process of this is the way that it's supposed to be, and this is the way that it works. This is the Bible way, which to a certain extent I can understand where they're coming from. But then you have feminism, which it now brings into the equation of women having the opportunities to do things that they weren't able to do before. Because when we look at the time frame where patriarchy was at its height, there were a lot of stories of men who great providers, but as I said earlier, were terrible communicators. And those particular men who provided for one household, they produced a whole nother family. So we have all of these stories of families that were built behind the scenes. Like, you've heard the stories of when a particular older gentleman passed away. He had his wife, then he had his mistress, and that mistress had children, and then he's got these children, and then these children don't find out they got stepbrothers and sisters until later on. And so we're seeing a fight between patriarchy and feminism. And also what we're seeing is when it comes to the definition of marriage, the definition and the ideology of marriage has evolved. It once evolved from a place of it was on display and it was something that people looked at as almost like, hey, this is a luxury thing to do. Now, marriage is something that's, anybody can do it. There was a certain look that marriage had. It had this look of it was sacred. And when you went into it, you looked at it from the standpoint of, making sure that you did things a certain way because marriage was honorable. Now marriage is not honorable anymore. Marriage is convenience. We're conveniently getting married because we didn't have children, or we're conveniently getting married because we don't want to wait to have sex, or we're conveniently getting married because we've been together for so long that it's like, it's the thing that we should just go ahead and do. And so when we're looking at all of those factors, we're dealing with a generation now who they seen what mommy and daddy went in the previous generation. They see the history of what has gone on. They see the oppression for what women dealt with, and they see the men that are tired because men are being almost forced to become, quote unquote, the type of men that is able to take care of a household. And many of those individuals in this generation are asking questions. This generation that we're in is one of the most inquisitive generations that we've ever seen, because they no longer want to just go by your words. They want to see what it is you do. You ever heard growing up, don't listen, don't, do as I say, not as I do? I want you to listen to what I got to say. But if I do something opposite, I want you to ignore it. And this generation is not ignoring that. This generation is pointing out, and they're saying, listen, you're telling me to do this, but I see this. So how do I go and do this when you've been doing this and I'm seeing the exact opposite of what you said?
Yeah. Yeah, that's real. This generation is not playing. Like, they have questions on top of questions.
Yeah, they do.
And will not let you go until they get the answer that they're looking for.
Right.
But I mean, and that's good to a degree too, because like you said, we grew up in that era of children should be seen and not heard, and do as I say, not as I do, and that whole era. I guess I'm telling my age, and so we just follow suit, and so we kind of carried those things with us until we got older, and then another generation started to ask, like you say, start asking why, which is a beautiful thing. But at the same time, I do believe that, like you said, with marriage, anybody can marry you. You can, you can go to Vegas and Elvis can marry you. Tupac can marry you. It don't take much. There was some sacredness to marriage, and I think it's just as easy as it is to get your driver's license. I mean, I think there should be some kind of barriers to you getting married, but I guess that's kind of plays into just
think about this. It is easier to get a marriage license than it is to get a driver's license.
Yep.
It's easy to get a marriage license.
Yep. Easy.
All you got to do is go to the state, whatever state that you're in, and you're paying between $30 and $50. If you do a little bit of marriage counseling, you get a discount. They knock it down to about $30 to $35. So it is very easy to get married. It's very easy to step into this institution, even if you don't have a great understanding of it.
Yeah. Marriage, easy to get in, hard to get out of. I mean, it could be easy, but it's going to come with a price.
Tell me about it.
If you're willing to pay that price.
Right.
Are dating apps ruining relationships or just exposing what was already broken?
The dating apps are a combination. They are exposing what's already there, but they are ruining a lot of individuals, because what this does with the dating apps is, while I'm on this dating app, I can be whoever I want to be. Like, if I'm 5'7" on that dating app, I could be 6'4" until we go on a real date, and then you find out I'm 5'7". I can get a real good AI picture, and I can present myself to be something that I'm not. So dating apps have the potential to ruin, but they also are, they're also showing what's already there. And let's be honest, even though this generation is one of the most inquisitive ones, this generation also looks for the most shortcuts that I have ever seen in my entire life. They look for the shortcuts, and AI does not help it any more than it already is. Like, AI makes it very easy for you not to have to do stuff. Like, you need a 20-page paper, AI will write that thing in 15 minutes, and then it'll show you how to not have to let it go through the little AI sensor, and your professor won't even know that you use AI. You could write a 20-page paper at 7:05, and all you got to do is plug in the little information. So this generation is definitely inquisitive, definitely more technological, but this generation loves shortcuts. And the dating apps can be more of a shortcut, because what it does is that it's keeping people from really interacting with an individual at a space where they got to be themselves. I don't have to be myself, on the dating app. I can just be who I am. And then you got ones that they get on this app and they catfish. Like, how many gentlemen have catfished ladies? How many ladies have catfished a gentleman and said, I'm this, I'm that, and you come to find out they're not who they are. So Dating apps have done a combination of revealed what's already there, but they have ruined dating altogether.
Yeah, because I heard a lot of horror story dating apps. There was one lady I interviewed, so funny, probably the funniest date I've ever heard. Well, I heard a couple of them, but this one, she said that she wanted to date with this guy, and come to find out, he was using drugs, like hardcore drugs. I ain't gonna say what those drugs are. You can feel that in yourself. But she was like, I didn't know you was using that. That's not what happened on a dating app. What you told me. She said that was the craziest date I ever been. Just right in front of her to start doing drugs. Like, wow. But again, it's putting up that facade of who I want to be until we get to see each other physically. I met my wife on Instagram. I never did any dating apps, so I don't know what that experience is like. So yeah, but I've heard some interesting stories.
Instagram is, I ain't gonna call it a dating app, but Instagram kind of cuts to the chase of a lot of stuff, because on Instagram you can kind of see who's for real and who's not, and then it's like, oh, y'all like each other, let's video chat on Instagram, and you can be able to see if she got makeup on, or you can see if he wear Beijing, if his hairline is real, all of that. You can see that all on Instagram. Right, for real. That stuff. Let me tell you, some of these brothers out here, they go to that barber shop, and that barber, that spray, saving their hairlines for real.
I just said, you know what? Let's just keep it real.
Right.
Rest in peace to the hairline. Should people wait till they're healed before they start dating? And I say heal, and I throw it up in quotation marks. What are your thoughts on that?
So healing is one of those things where you are going to constantly be healing. So I heard Matthew Hussey say this, that healing is a gradual and it's a continual thing. Make sure you are healed enough, meaning that there's been enough healing for you to be able to reflect on what you've learned. Healing is the ability to look at your past and get resolution from it, where you're able to take accountability for the part you played, as opposed to when you're not truly healed, you really don't want to necessarily take accountability. Now, there are some spaces where, you may not necessarily look at it from the standpoint of, okay, it was your fault, but in most cases, healing allows you to kind of take accountability and walk forward.
Yeah, and I think I seen an interview with Matthew Hussey. I thought that was really good. And because I asked this very question on Threads today, right? And so people were like, yeah, you should be 100% healed. And I was thinking, so does that mean you looking for Jesus? Because healing it's a, like you say, it's a gradual process. I always tell people, even with my clients, the other shoe will drop. Like, expect it. It's going to happen. People are human. We are beautifully broken. Things happen. Yes, there should be things that you are healed from. But a lot of that comes from awareness. It's like, how can you heal from something that you have no awareness of? You just know that by default, you keep doing these same things over and over again. And you're like, oh, I didn't even know that was an issue. No wonder why I can't keep a relationship. Yeah, because you aren't aware. But you got to have that awareness. And then on top of the awareness, you got to go through the dark stage of wanting to heal and facing that. And a lot of people, I think, might not have the courage. They might be aware, but to have the courage to actually do it, to actually walk through that childhood abuse or whatever that was. I said, I shouldn't have said that out loud. But going through those things, trauma, I would say, it's another level. And then you got to be with somebody patient enough to go with you through that process. Because some people like, I'm good. Nope, I can't handle.
So the way I look at it is like this, and I've seen this happen where I've seen young ladies who They got married, they got a divorce, and they ended up getting married again a short while after. And at first, I kind of was like, okay, maybe they might have moved too fast. But then also, this is the thing about relationships that I think it's a nuance and people don't understand the level. There are some times in your life where you go through a season, you've been hurt, and while you're going through the process, God allows a person to be patient enough with you until you get to the space where you have enough healing to be in a healthy relationship. And that person is patient enough with you because you've put in enough work to show them that eventually you are going to get to that space, and I am going to walk with you as you are at the finish line, as opposed to coming grabbing you while you're in the middle of the fight.
Yeah, because you got to have those fruits of the spirit, right? Joy, peace, patience. You always skip over that, and long suffering. We don't talk about long suffering enough. I know that doesn't sound popular, but it's something that helps you grow and to think about, the grace that God gives us and how we should be able to extend that grace to others. From a biblical perspective, what dating advice do you completely disagree with?
Man, dating advice that I completely disagree with. Date them all.
Yeah, I don't. Why not though? Let's talk about it.
Most people do not have the capacity to see someone that they potentially might have connecting with other people, or most people don't have the emotional bandwidth to watch people that they're not committed to potentially be committed to someone else, yet you want them to pay attention to you. So I say maybe date one at a time. Now, if you decide to fit two, make sure they opposite ends of the spectrum. But when you start dealing with 3 and 4 and 5, I think emotionally you start putting yourself in a position where you start not being as intentional as you need to be.
I agree with that, because I think sometimes we can spread ourselves too thin trying to catch them all, like Pokemon, right? We just trying to catch them all. And some people, like I said, some people maybe can date 2 people, that whole thing. But then it gets murky because you're dating this person and then their birthday come up and you forgot about their birthday because you was with this person. You have all these different factors that come into play. And I know I'm one type. I'm one track. One woman is enough for me. One woman. I'm trying to keep up with the one I'm married to now, and it'll be 8 years this month. And so I'm trying to keep up with her. So I couldn't imagine, people talking about having 2 and 3 wives and all this stuff. I'm like, man, come on.
Man, one woman is enough. And if your mama's still alive and you got sisters, Doc, one is enough.
Yeah, right. One is enough. That's the title of the show. One is enough.
Exactly.
I'm interested to hear what you have to say about this. Is having a type helping or hurting people chances of finding the right partner?
It is absolutely hurting people. Because here's the thing. There's a difference between a type and a preference. A type has a certain aesthetic to it, physically, emotionally, and sometimes spiritually. When you have a type, it's as if you generalize a person. So that person is not necessarily able to give to you those things that you are needing. Now, when you have a preference can be arranged. But when you have a type, okay, I'll put it to you, this particular way. Okay. So and I might get in trouble for this, but there are, ones that they only date a certain complexion of a woman. Like she gotta be this. Yeah. She gotta be this skin tone. Now, you can have your type as far as that, but do understand that sometimes even that can limit you from being able to know. So I think type does limit. There are certain women who only date a certain type of man. They're like, oh, the type of man that makes this amount of money, and every man that you dealt with that makes this type of money then ghosted you or left you. Or for men who, well, I only date Instagram models. Well, the Instagram model got 14 dudes on speed dial that are taking care of certain things. And, you know, when one of them didn't take care of it, you were just a means to get past that until the next one actually hit her back. So when you start looking at types, you limit yourself from being able to really get to know some really great people.
Yeah, man. I agree because looking at, I mean, I even think about, you know, my past, and I realized that I had a type, you know, but I didn't come to realize that until I was older. I was like, oh, okay, just finding out some stuff about myself in therapy, and so, like you say, I like when you said the preference, because you could miss out on a really great person because they're not your type. Now, I do believe attraction matters.
Oh, yes.
You know, attraction matters, right? Especially you plan on doing the rest of your life with this person. But sometimes you might have to sacrifice some things. It just depends on what's number one on the priority list. So yeah. But some people refuse. They like, this is my type. I'm gonna stick with this, but I'm just gonna keep fighting until I can get my type and what I like.
I'm gonna say this right here. So when I was growing up, I had a type of what they would consider to be like, I wanted a certain type of woman as far as church. Like she was, you know, she had to be this way.
Yeah.
She had to be doing this, until I met my type of church girl. And I found out that she was boring as all get out. I said, why did I choose that one? Now, here, and I'm going to get in trouble. This girl was more trouble than the ones that weren't in church. And this girl would tell, let me tell you. So I remember when me and her were dating, you know, we were, you know, I came in town to see her a day early. And this girl sat on the phone and lied to her parents and was like, oh, yeah, I'm not with anybody. And I'm literally sitting right there with her. I'm just like, and you in church? So, yeah, like you in church, you know, you doing all these different things. And I came to find out that for me, certain type of young ladies that were heavily involved in church at certain angles, I couldn't deal with them because my personality and the type of person that I am, you know, I'm definitely, you know, a believer in God. I'm definitely, you know, have a relationship with God. But the majority of the time, I am about being outgoing and enjoying people and being able to have conversations, you know, with people that may be a little bit differently than me. And in this particular situation, I found out that I wasn't myself. Because even though I had my type, it wasn't the type of person that I needed to continue to get to know, because that person was causing me to try to fit the mold of what they think I should be. And I was like, no, it's like, you know, you want a preacher, you want a Bible scholar. Yeah, I know the Bible, and to a certain extent I can be a Bible scholar, but I got to travel. I got to enjoy myself. I got to watch, you know, football, basketball games. I got to, you know, play. Back then I had my PS4. Like, I got to do those things. Like, you got to let me do it. Like, I'm not going to be sitting up here all day, you know. We talk about church and, you know, did you see what the Lord did? Yeah, I saw what the Lord did. I don't feel like talking about that right now. I want the Lord to move in this game right here because I'm losing. You know what I'm saying?
I hear you, man. That's real. Because sometimes, like you say, it's until you meet that person that you thought you were good, and then all of a sudden, when you meet that match, you think twice, for sure. If someone's been stuck in a dating cycle for years, what are they doing wrong?
Believing that they are not the problem. A lot of times when you're living in a cycle, you point the finger at other people and you'll say, well, the reason why this is happening is because this person is responsible for it. It wasn't until I got to a space in my life where I was reflecting, and I could go back and identify the cycles that I lived in that allowed me to gain the lessons that I could give to people now. I'll give you an example. One of the cycles that I would do would be in the beginning of the relationship or the beginning of the connection, I would commit what you call emotional promiscuity. I would give you all this information about me. I would tell you how much money I made. I tell you all my aspirations. I tell you what my doggy's name was. I tell you my mama's first, last, middle name. I tell you where I got baptized in the church. I tell you all this information that was irrelevant to their capacity. And so when they would end up not wanting to deal with me, it wouldn't be because I was a bad guy. I'll say this to, for the men that are watching. One of the reasons why a lot of you are in a cycle of, man, I'm not able to necessarily get that woman's attention is because you've taken the element of mystery out of that conversation. I'm not saying that you withhold information. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that maybe you need to be able to carry a conversation in a way to where you guys can understand each other better day by day, as opposed to, well, I'm looking for my wife. Don't tell her that. Like, just be you. And if the opportunity comes, you show her that you're looking for a wife. Don't tell her. Like, that's a cycle that a lot of people, they make an announcement of what they're going to do. And so when you make an announcement of what you're going to do in a relationship, unless that person is 100% sure that they want to be with you, 9 times out of 10, they're looking for something totally different because you've announced to them what it is that you're doing, and you didn't even give them a chance to decide if that's what they want. They don't have enough information. So you continue this cycle of announcing what it is that you're doing. I'm doing this in a relationship. Oh, I bought you this. Or in my previous relationship, I did that. Instead of vetting and saying, okay, is this decision that I'm making in this particular connection, is it best for me to make this decision? I'm going to give you an example. So I know this gentleman, and he dated this, well, he talked to this young lady, and this young lady has moved on, is about to get married. So one particular day, he looks on social media and he sees her and he's like, okay, she's got a month towards getting the wedding. And he's like, I'm going to reach out to her and I'm going to just, wish her congratulations. And the Holy Spirit arrested him and was like, no, leave it alone. Because what you're doing is you are opening the door for you to try and make it known of something that you don't necessarily need to make it known. Okay, when the time comes, you take congratulations, but you ain't got to do no goodbye speech or I'm wishing you well. That's a bad habit for you. You have a habit of when things end between you and another person and they move on, now you want to give her this concession speech like, I wish you well. Stop doing that. Some people deserve just your congratulations. That's it. They don't deserve nothing else of your energy, because what happens a lot of times is that when you put energy into giving someone an explanation for why things didn't work out, you are further putting them in a space where they don't want to be around you. So no, I don't have to announce.
I agree.
Let that go.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, some people, they try to put their foot in the door, maybe just a little bit, put their foot in the door, try to, just a little. Nah, just leave them alone. Let them be.
Right. And what eventually ends up happening is that the thing that a lot of times happens is that even when that person moves on, there will come a moment in time where that person gets a chance to reflect on what has happened. And the opportunity may come for you to sit down and have a healthy conversation. A lot of times and the cycle is for real. A lot of times in this culture and in this modern dating, We are addicted to something that a person does not have to get to us, and that's closure. We are addicted to closure in this modern day. We're addicted to it. Like why did she get up and why did she leave and why did he get up and why did he leave and he ghosted me? Like, we want to know why that ended up happening. And we go on this chase to try to determine why a person got up and left, why a person did this, why a person did that, why this person walked away. And when you look at it, you're going to spend your whole life trying to explain something that someone has already decided that they were going to do before you even got to that point.
Yeah. I heard a therapist said, take the healing out of the hands of someone who hurt you. That's real. Because people, like you said, they're looking for that explanation why they did this, why they did that, and I get it to a degree because it's human nature. You just want to know why, but at the same time, holding on to that why will have you questioning yourself and doubting yourself, and so you kind of moving different the next time around because you're not sure if this person going to ghost you, or you super feeling insecure about, oh, did I do this? Did I not put on my perfume, my cologne? Did I not wear this? Did I not, and now you just kind of paranoid opposed to letting people, because people going to people, as my old pastor would say, people going to do what they do. And sometimes we have to be okay with that, well, all the time we got to be okay with that. And I think once we get to that place, it's okay to let people do what they're going to do, because if they're for you, they're going to stick with you. If not, they wasn't a part of it. And it's a hard pill to swallow, but it's just the reality of it, man.
Here's the reality that I've learned about closure, and this has helped me in my current relationship. Here's the thing: when you're stepping into the territory of preparing to be with someone for the rest of your life, you have to take into account that the work that you're putting in to be with that person, it takes you away from the desire to be relevant to other people that have not chosen you.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to resist the urge to be the main character in someone else's story about why they got up and left. Now, I'll say this, okay? Before I got engaged, I sat down with myself, before, this was maybe like a couple weeks before I proposed, or, short little while before I proposed. And I started thinking about my ex-wife. And I started thinking to myself, I said, man, wow, I'm getting ready to make this step, and I'm getting ready to, move forward for the first time towards the very thing that I've done before. And I started thinking about, wow, all the where I came from. And for a moment, I said to myself, I wonder what my ex-wife is going to think if she were to find out that I moved on. Like, what is she going to think? And let me tell you the thought that came to my mind. You ready?
What's that?
Who cares?
That's freedom right there.
Who cares?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you owe, especially when you heal, you owe no one an explanation for your healing. You owe no one an explanation.
It's true.
You owe no one an explanation. If you heal and a person that you were dealing with is offended because you healed from them, that's their problem, not yours. Move forward.
That's good. And on that note, man, that's a heck of a close right there.
Yes, sir.
Man, I love it. Man, Bryan, thank you so much for stopping through again and touching
Man,
on
I appreciate you.
Yeah, relevant topic, man. Let everyone know how they can get in touch with you.
Sure, you can find me on Instagram, CoachBT316. You can find me on TikTok, CoachBT316. And you can find me on Facebook under Coach BT, or not Coach BT, Bryan Thomas. So Bryan Thomas on Facebook, Coach BT316 on Instagram and TikTok. And just come there and just trying to make the best of what I can with the time that I have. So, man, I appreciate your platform. Your platform is giving people an opportunity to have a voice that, other people might, not give them a voice, or they may feel like, well, I got to be at this level, man. But this platform makes it, makes everyone relevant for their moment. And so, man, I appreciate it. I enjoy it, man. Anytime that, I could be of assistance to help you, man, I'm going to do it to help you, man. So I shout out to you and your whole platform.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, behind the scenes, you show love. So I definitely appreciate your support. Brave Hearts community, you heard it here. So go connect with Bryan. As you see, the man was dropping gems. So make sure you go connect with him on all the other platforms. Make sure you share this video with a friend because you never know who would need great content like this. So this is Shon Heineman with my special guest.
Yep, you're right. Perfect.
Bryan Thomas. And we are out.
Appreciate it.